All right, so like I said, we're going to look at an introduction to the Mazzaroth tonight and learn something. So this is the go-to guy. Robert Williams is his name. His channel is called Signs of the Hebrew Mazzaroth. I do believe that he's spent around 10 or 12 years studying this one thing. So he's sort of like, the code searcher, where I've been doing this for 16 years on YouTube, and this is all I do other than, teach about the calendar and some agriculture stuff. Um, let's see what he got to say. You guys heard of this channel before? You ever seen this channel? Christina has.
Yes, very many years.
It's a good. This guy's a good teacher. I like all the, and I like visuals. So he's got plenty of those.
Of the children of Israel in the signs of the zodiac. Many authors who speak about the Mazzaroth mostly only talk about the gospel and the stars, but we're going to be showing you that the Mazzaroth not only reveals the gospel and the stars, the plan of redemption and the mighty acts of Yeshua in accomplishing that redemption, but it also reveals the history of the children of Israel from the sign of Virgo or Bethula in Hebrew to Aryeh or Leo. And so this is going to be incorporating a lot more information than just the gospel, but the gospel will certainly be a part of this message. And so we read in Genesis 1:14 and 15, and Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." Before we get going here onto my next slide and into the presentation, you'll notice that my website down there is mazzaroth.info, as well as my Facebook page, Instagram, and how you can reach me on my email account. I need to, okay. All right, so the first thing we need to talk about is a disclaimer. The information presented in this study is drawn from a biblical and Hebraic understanding of the signs which Elohim placed in the heavens at creation. Sadly, these signs became corrupted over time and turned into various Greek and Roman mythological gods and goddesses that were feared and worshipped. The children of Israel were instructed not to be dismayed at the signs of heaven, as the Gentiles were. They were not to serve them or to bow down to them, nor were they to practice fortune-telling, divination, or monthly prognosticating. The worship of the sun, moon, and the stars are all strictly forbidden. So although we are commanded not to worship the sun, the moon, or the stars, or burn incense to the constellations, there is no prohibition in the study of the Mazzaroth and the knowledge that they impart concerning the glory of Elohim that is revealed in the person of Yeshua, our Savior. These heavenly luminaries impart spiritual truths concerning the history and redemption of the children of Israel, from which the students of Scripture may freely glean and be blessed by. So I liken the study of the Mazzaroth to the parable which Yeshua gave regarding the wheat and the tares. And another parable he put forth to them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field, but while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares. He sowed mythological gods and divination and the horoscope among the wheat and went his way. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared." And so this is the reason why many Christians immediately shy away and have a knee-jerk reaction when you bring up the zodiac and some of the zodiac signs, Sagittarius and Capricorn and that sort of thing. It sounds so foreign to them and so astrology-ish, if that's a word. And so they shy away from it, believing that the scriptures forbid, talking about these things. But what the scripture does forbid, which we mentioned in the last slide, is the divination, the monthly prognosticating, the burning of the incense to the constellations, that sort of thing. But there is a most definite message contained within the Mazzaroth that points to, as Psalms 19:1 says, the heavens declare the glory of Elohim. And that glory is seen in the face of Yeshua, in the person of Yeshua. And so he is center stage on the Mazzaroth wheel. And what we're going to see is him fulfilling.
Let me just say this. It's much more than that. It is the story. I mean, you might have heard of the gospel in the skies, but the stars hold a lot more than that. And the reason why we're not supposed to forecast is because the future is contained um, in the stars. This is how, I mean, the Magi were following something they knew was going to happen because of what the stars was telling them. So, all right, so there's a difference between prognosticating and predicting and fortune telling and understanding what the stars are telling you. It's like looking at the clock, and the clock is telling you what time it is.
He's repeating the history of Israel, is what you're going to see. In a lot of ways, he's repeating the history of Israel where they failed. And let's just go to our next slide. So many Christians will have nothing to do with the signs of the zodiac.
And just a side note, you guys, all cultures have a way of understanding the stars. All cultures have a form of the zodiac.
Believing that the Bible strictly forbids this. In both Judaism and Christianity, astrology is officially condemned because it detracts from the sovereignty of Elohim, as though the stars and the planets can be lesser creators in Elohim's world. In Islam, the contest between astronomy and astrology became explicit. Al-Ghazi Ali, considered the greatest religious authority after the Prophet Muhammad in the 10th century, commended astronomy as part of the study of the signs of Elohim and Elohim's creation. Isn't that quite a statement? But strongly condemned astrology as spurious.
All right, can you see that? Can you see that? The signs of Elohim in Elohim's creation, but strongly condemn, astrology, using the stars to predict, right? So
the contribution by the Muslim world towards astronomy is so substantial that many stars are still referred to by their Arabic names, such as Aldebaran, that's the bullseye in the sign of Taurus, and Altair, the flying eagle, in Aquarius, and Deneb, and many others. This legacy is not only left in the star names, but many astronomical terms, such as Aladad and Azimuth and Nadir, are derived from Arabic as well. And so many Christians are surprised to learn that the zodiac is mentioned in the Bible. In Job 38, 31, and 32, it reads, Can you bind the sweet influences of Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion? And so this is Elohim speaking to Job. Can you bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or can you guide Arcturus with his sons? And so down below here, we have the Pleiades, we have Arcturus. You see the star in his knee right there. That's the principal star of the constellation Boethes. And this is Arcturus. So when you read this passage in Job 38, can you guide Arcturus with his sons? It's speaking of this man right here. And just to his right, you don't see it in this picture here, is Ursa Major. And Ursa Major, we have it as a bear, but bears don't have long uplifted tails when we take a look at the Ursa Major constellation. So we know that's a perversion, and we'll get to that and clarify that more when we get to that sign in the sign of Cancer. Cancer has the Ursa Major and Ursa Minor constellations in it. But he's leaving that fold, the fold of Ursa Major, and he's coming after the one lost sheep. But his sons are the ones within that fold. He's leaving that fold to go after his lost sheep. And so when we look up the word Mazzaroth in Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, for example, it tells us that it is some noted constellation, but only in the plural. The 12 signs of the zodiac and their 36 associated constellations. So there it is, right there, the Mazzaroth. In Hebrew, the pronunciation is actually without the H, so it would be Mazzaroth. But there it is, right there. It's telling you that this, the Mazzaroth is the constellation. It's the principal constellations, and that would be the zodiacal constellations and their accompanying minor constellations. And so the term zodiac is rooted in the Hebrew and Sanskrit word sodi, which means the way. And I find that very interesting. It also means life or path. The early first century believers in Yeshua were referred to as followers of the way. They followed the one who said, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
So in my opinion, on this note, the stars as we go through history is telling a historical a story through the stars. And by the way, all the moving planets, which supposedly represents angels in Hebraic culture, but other gods and demigods in other cultures, they play a role as well. And so where their position is an indicator of whatever. Right. So there's an actual science to this.
And so in Genesis, we read earlier in our first slide that the stars are for signs. And so I tell people we need to let them be for signs, because that's the very first thing that Yehoshua said about the stars, the luminaries that he placed in the heavens, that they were to be for signs as well as for seasons. And we know the word seasons here. If you look at the Hebrew.
All right. So what are signs? Like if you're going down the highway and you see a sign on the side of the road, what do you do with it? You read it. You observe it. It tells you something, some information, right? So the stars are for signs. They're for reading and understanding what you're being told.
Hebrew is referring to the festivals, the feasts of Yahuwah, not the winter, summer, spring, winter seasons. And they're to be for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the less light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
All right. So the sun and the moon. The sun rules the day and the moon rules the night, right? So that's the two great lights in the sky.
And down here we have we look up the word signs, and it refers to a signal, a flag, a beacon, a monument, evidence, an ensign, a token, remembrance, and standard. All of these words are implied in the word signs, or the Hebrew oath. And so the question then is, what are these signs a signal of? What are they a monument of? What does give evidence to? What is it giving remembrance to? It's a standard. And so when we get to the tribes of Israel, they were camped around the tabernacle and they had their incense. We read in Numbers 2, 1 and 2, it says, and Yahuwah spake unto Moses and unto Aaron.
All right, so what he means by ensign is they had a banner or a flag, and on that flag it would have something that, like Naphtali. Naphtali was represented by the deer, and Benjamin the wolf, right? So the Judah, a lion. Levi was the priest, or that would have been a Hoshan. Then you could see
Aaron saying, every man of the children of Israel shall pitch by his own standard with the ensign of their father's house. Far off about the tabernacle of the congregation shall they pitch. According to the ancient Jewish tradition, authorities believe that each of the 12 tribes bore one of the 12 signs or ensigns of the zodiac. It is also proposed that each of the 12 patriarchs were born under one of the 12 different zodiacs.
I've also believed I believe this as well, that each one of them were born of one of the signs, and this is why they are the zodiac. You see this in the story of Joseph about the sun, moon, and stars bowing down to him.
Sign. So that would explain why each patriarch was represented by one of these 12 signs when the sun was in that particular sign. And this is the Aramaic translation, which is interesting. And Elohim said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to distinguish between the day and the night, and let them be for signs and for festival times. So there they have it correct. And for the numbering by them, the account of days, and for the sanctifying of the beginning of months and the beginning of years, the passing away of months, and the passing away of years, the revolutions of the sun, the birth of the moon, and the revolvings of seasons. So what are the stars? Where does the Bible say that Elohim placed them? So Elohim said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Thus Elohim made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And Elohim called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. Then when we come down to the fourth day, it says, Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth." And it was so. Then Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Elohim set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth. So we just read on day 2 that he created the firmament, and on either side of the firmament, there is water. The firmament divides the waters above from the waters beneath. And then in Genesis 1:7, no, I read that. But the point here in verse 17, it says that Elohim set them, that is the lights, the luminaries, he set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth. So that includes all of the luminaries are within the firmament, and on either side of those luminaries, there's water. There's not the vacuum of space. The Bible says nothing about the vacuum of space. You'll never read about that. And so this is a video now that I captured of Elon Musk's Falcon 9 rocket. And what you're going to see here is this rocket going up and then scraping across the waters on the underside of the firmament. Now, I used to think when it said, "Let there be a firmament to divide the waters above from the waters below," that the waters below were referring to the ocean on the surface of the earth. But now, the research that's coming out now is that no, there is water directly underneath the firmament, and water can be, I've seen experiments where water can be suspended by frequency, by sound. So it doesn't have to just collapse, it can be held in place there. And so we're going to take a look at this now. And there you have it. That is phenomenal footage. Quite incredible. And so when you look at the stars, when you look at these stars, you are looking at them through the waters that are directly underneath the firmament. That is my belief. Nikola Tesla said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." And so now we're going to take a look at this video clip of what the stars actually look like. This was filmed with a Nikon P1000 camera. Here we go. Absolutely stunning footage of these stars. I have never seen the stars look like this before. I've never seen this. And now understanding the firmament, understanding Genesis 1 about how the firmament divided the waters above and the waters below, and now seeing these stars as they really are and seeing that little ripple effect, um, that's just amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. All right, moving on from there. So every star has a name. He counts the number of the stars. He calls them all by name. Psalms 147:4. So every star has a name. And those star names are what form these various constellations, whether it's the tail, whether it's the bow, or the sword, or the knee, or the hair. The star name is going to indicate how to draw that figure. It's not the wild imaginings of shepherds, out in their fields and imagining, things up there in the heavens with the stars. No, these star drawings come from the names of the stars that were given to them. Now, we don't have the name of every star. Perhaps Adam and Seth and Enoch knew the name of every star. I don't know. That's a lot of stars to count. But every star does have a name. And the brightest of these stars are the ones that have retained, for the most part, their Semitic names, the ancient Semitic names. So it says again in Isaiah 40, verse 26, lift up your eyes on high and see who has created these things, who brings out their host by number. He calls them all by name, by the greatness of his might and the strength of his power. Not one is missing. So here we have a view of Ptolemy's classical 48 constellations, the tabernacle in the heavens. And the dark circle here, this is the ecliptic. So this is the path of the sun. Now, I will tell you, I need to make a clarification on this because some have brought it to my attention that the constellations, that the sun moves the other direction. Um, it goes from Virgo to Libra and to Scorpio. That's the right sequence. However, it should be counterclockwise. But on my wheel, I have them going clockwise. So why is that? Well, I did that because this map right here of Ptolemy's is going the other direction, which I have in my poster. But the wheel, if I did the wheel going the opposite direction, I felt it would add confusion. And so to be in sync with this map right here, I have them both going in the same direction. In my opinion, it does not change the meaning of any of the star names, the star figures, the zodiac signs, and everything that's associated with it. So that is my take on that. Perhaps one day I may turn my wheel around and have it go from right to left. As you know, Hebrew is read from right to left. And the stars, the constellations, as they move across the sky, do go from right to left. From the Father's perspective, looking down, he would see them this way. But with us looking up, it would be going counterclockwise. All right, so now we have the comparison of the earthly and celestial tabernacle. So the one on earth, which Moses was instructed to build, which I have done my best to build through Photoshop here, and then the one in the heavens. So both tabernacles are filled with the glory of Elohim. Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of Yahuwah filled the tabernacle. Okay? And then the one in the heavens, it says, his glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. So both tabernacles are filled with the glory of Elohim. Both tabernacles also identify with the number 48. The earthly tabernacle was made up of 48 golden boards, and the celestial tabernacle is made up of 48 constellations. The gematria for the Hebrew word star and stars, which is kokab, that's the name, it equals 48. So that's interesting. Now, today we have 88 constellations, but the original were the 48 constellations. We now have 88 because an additional 40, some of the constellations in the Northern Hemisphere were divided because they were large, such as Argo, the ship, was divided into three separate constellations. And there's a couple others that have also been divided, such as Ophiuchus, who's holding the serpent. That's been divided into two separate constellations. And so you have additional constellations there. And then the constellations in the southern hemisphere have been added. And so, but these constellations are relatively, these additional 40 constellations are relatively modern, like only in the last 100 or 200 years or so. But the 48 go way back and can be traced back, especially the 12 zodiacal constellations can be traced all the way back to Mesopotamia, to Ur of the Chaldees, to the birthplace of Abraham. And so they have very strong roots going all the way back. And then both tabernacles speak in signified language. And both were polluted or have been polluted and cleansed, destroyed, and will be made again. So today, the Mazzaroth is being restored back to the children of Israel in all of its glory and signified language as it relates to the history and redemption of the children of Israel. So just as the Israelites had polluted the sanctuary, Ezekiel was shown how the sanctuary was polluted with all of these, I think with pigs and different things like that. It became polluted when Yeshua was here on the earth, that they had made his house, a den of thieves. And so he cleansed the temple. But then the temple in the heaven is also going to be, the stars are going to fall from heaven, right? And there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. And so both tabernacles have been polluted and will be, the one in the heavens polluted through all this Greek mythology and that sort of thing. But it's going to be made new. All right, so now here's something that's also interesting that I discovered, is that the veil into the holy place contained the principal constellations embroidered on that veil. Josephus, the first century Jewish historian, tells us that this curtain had the principal stars of the heavens displayed on it in tapestry form. It represented the entrance into the starry heavens beyond our atmosphere. So that's really interesting. And then when you go into the holy place, of course, you have the candlestick with its seven lights, which corresponds to the seven.
That's a really interesting fact, folks. And Josephus would have been a firsthand account. Of course, Josephus was he was very familiar with the temple. He was at the destruction of the temple when Titus came through. So it's very probable that he knows what he's talking about here.
Principal luminaries, the sun, moon, Mars, Mercury, Venus, etc. So that was really interesting that these principal constellations, so that would be the zodiacal constellations, which each of the 12 tribes are represented by, were embroidered on the veil going into the holy place. Now, there's also a very direct connection, a parallel study of the Mazzaroth with Book of Revelation. Both are filled with this type of imagery of various beasts that are figurative. In the Book of Revelation, you have a beast coming up out of the sea with 7 heads. You have a woman clothed with the sun, and she has 2 wings of a great eagle, which would be Virgo. Virgo has 2 wings of a great eagle. You don't see it in the picture here. But Virgo, in other pictures, if you did a Google search on Virgo, you'll see that she has a pair of eagle wings upon her back. This is taken right from Revelation 12. But it says here in the opening verses of the book of Revelation that it is the revelation of Yeshua the Messiah, which Elohim gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John, who bear record of the word of Elohim and to the testimony of Yeshua the Messiah and of all things that he saw. Blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. And so the book of Revelation was communicated to John in signified language, just as the Mazzaroth is being communicated to us through these various signs. Right? It's the same thing. And blessed are those who read and study the book of Revelation And blessed, I believe, everyone here will be in the study of the Mazzaroth as we're taking a look at it.
That's a really good point. And I saw one of you mention that in the chat there earlier about Revelation 12. And you're absolutely right. Revelation 12 is about the Mazzaroth, in particular, Bethula, right there, where the sun is in this. And of course, we know what it says there. But John uses the Mazzaroth to tell us something in Revelation.
You will be blessed. I've been tremendously blessed and enlightened in the 12 years that I've been studying the Mazzaroth. I've just been totally blown away. It takes a lot of research. It does take a lot of time, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And I'm just super excited to be sharing this with everyone because this is a blessing and it is a revelation of our Messiah, and it's a revelation of the history of the children of Israel sequentially from the sign of Virgo all the way around the circle of the Mazzaroth to the sign of Leo. It depicts milestones in their history. Now, this, I tell people, this is the real Star Wars. Not the one we saw in the movie theaters. You know, this is a Star Wars between Christ and Satan and the children of Israel who are caught up in the middle of it all, right? The signs in the heavens tell the story of a great war that took place in heaven that resulted in the fall of Lucifer from heaven, with a third of the angels signified by Draco the dragon, bottom right here on your screen, with his tail wrapped around Ursa Minor. Now, when we get to this sign, we'll discover that Ursa Minor refers to a third of the angels that fell with the dragon, the dragon with his tail drew a third of the stars and cast them to the earth. And you'll find that when you compare Ursa Minor with Ursa Major, Ursa Minor here, that the dragon has his tail wrapped around, is 1/3 the size of Ursa Major. And the principal star in Ursa Minor is Kokab, which has a numerical value of 48, which is 1/3 of 144. So I found that to be quite interesting. So they tell the story of the Holy One of Israel who was to be born of a virgin and offer himself up as a lamb. That would be Aries on the cross. That is the Southern Cross. And the demise of that old serpent called the devil and Satan. That would be Hydra, the fleeing serpent, who will be captured and pierced through by the lion of the tribe of Judah at the end of time. When you go to the book of Genesis, chapter 49, when Jacob is blessing his sons on his deathbed, he speaks of Judah, how his paws will be in the neck of his enemies. And here you have the lion representing Judah with his paws in the neck of Hydra, the fleeing serpent. They also tell the story of the children of Israel, each sign marking a major milestone in their history. It is the story of a bridegroom coming for his bride, the good shepherd seeking his lost sheep to return them to their fold, which is in the sign of Cancer. Cancer was originally a fold. We have it as a crab now, but the star names tell a different story. The star names indicate that this was and is a fold. And so right near the end of the zodiac signs, just before we get to Leo, his people are going to be returned back to their proper fold. All right, so again, the story of the Mazzaroth, the principal characters in the story of the Mazzaroth, from Bethula the Virgin in Virgo to Arye the Lion, is Yeshua the Messiah. His adversary is Satan, and the children of Israel is the bride of Yeshua. It's the story of the bridegroom coming for his bride, and that of a shepherd recovering his lost sheep, returning them to their fold. So where do we begin the story of the Mazzaroth? The ancient Egyptians designated the starting point of the zodiac with Virgo the Virgin when they constructed the Sphinx, which stands to the east of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It shows a woman's head on the body of a lion, indicating that the ancient star signs began with the Virgin and ended with the lion. Another indication that the story begins with the Virgin is that this is the prominent constellation that is seen in the night sky in the spring at the beginning of the biblical year. And finally, Virgo is represented by the Hebrew letter Kuf, whose ancient pictograph was that of the sun at the horizon, indicating that the starting point of the sun's journey around the circle of the zodiac began in the sign of Virgo. So in Psalm 19, very familiar passage, we read that the heavens declare the glory of Elohim, and the firmament shows his handiwork. The word declare here to the right means to recount, to rehearse, to celebrate, to declare, show forth, speak, talk, and tell. So the heavens are definitely recounting something. They are dress rehearsals, as the festivals are. They're dress rehearsals for the wedding of the bridegroom and the bride. They are celebrating something, right? They are declaring, they're showing us something, they're speaking, they're talking, and they're speaking to us in sign language, in these pictographs. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard, because they're speaking through language. That's a universal language that all can understand. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. Now, if you were to look up the word line here, it means a connect to connect, or connecting rim. And the zodiac band is a rim that goes around in a circle, and it connects one sign to the next. The 12 zodiac has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the sun, which is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices like a strong man to run its race. Its rising is from one end of heaven, and its circuit to the other end. That is the circuit of the zodiac, the Mazzaroth wheel. In 2 Corinthians 4:6, so it says that the heavens declare the glory of Elohim. What does that mean? What are we to understand, as far as the heavens declaring the glory of the Creator? Well, in 2 Corinthians 4:6, it says, "For it is Elohim who commanded light to shine out of darkness, who has shown in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of Elohim in the face or person of Yeshua HaMashiach, our Savior." And so the heavens are declaring the glory of Elohim, and that glory is seen in the person of our Savior. That is the knowledge that it's giving to us, right? Day unto day utters speech, and night reveals knowledge. It's the knowledge of our Savior, who's going through. He's like a bridegroom, and he's circling around, passing through each sign, each of those 12 signs representing the 12 tribes of Israel. He's moving amongst his people, just like you see in Revelation 1, where John turns and he sees a voice, that spoke to him, and he sees Yeshua. He sees him, and his face was as the sun, and he has 7 stars in his hands, right? And he sees him in the midst of the golden candlesticks. He's walking among them, just as he is, allegorically speaking, the sun passing through these 12 signs of the zodiac. In Hebrews 1:2, it says of Christ that he is the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person. The gospel is preached in the stars. So we talked a little bit about how the history of the children of Israel is revealed in the stars, but also, of course, the gospel is also being preached in the message of the Mazzaroth. And when we look at Psalms 19 again, verse 3 and 4, it says, "There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world." Compare that with Romans 10, which says, "How beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel of peace, who bring glad tidings of good things. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, 'Lord, who has believed our report?' So then faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Elohim. But I say, have they not heard? Yes, indeed. Their sound has gone out to all the earth, and their words to the ends of the world." He is quoting from Psalms 19, speaking of the glory of Elohim revealed in the stars. And so the message of salvation, the message of our Savior, is being proclaimed in the heavens. And this is what Paul's referring to, that even though they don't have the written word in their hands, that story of the Savior has been above their heads the whole time, night after night, giving knowledge and declaring the glory of their creator. All right, so there have been several books written on the gospel and the stars. These are the first three books that I read and gleaned from quite a bit and got me all excited to get into this study and keep going and going and going, and I'm still going. Um, these books give a dispensationalist view, interpretation of the Mazzaroth. And so you won't read about, or very little about, the children of Israel. What you're going to read about is such as the story of the Virgo, the virgin, how Christ was born of a virgin, how he was weighed in the balances, for 30 pieces of silver, that sort of thing, with the lamb and Aries. And but you won't read about the history of the children of Israel. You won't see that. And so another problem these books have is they have these star name definitions, but they don't tell you where these definitions are being drawn from. They just tell you what they mean, and then you just take it at face value. And for quite a while, I mean, I was really curious to find out, do these star names really mean what they're telling us that they mean? So then I came across a book called The Mystery of the Mazzaroth, Prophecy in the Constellations by Tim Warner. Now, this is one of the few books that I actually recommend because I found a lot of problems in many of the other books that people have written on the Mazzaroth. But this is one book that I can almost wholeheartedly vouch for. Tim Warner brought my attention. He was the first that I know of to bring attention to the 12 signs of the Mazzaroth relating to the history of the children of Israel. I had not heard that before. This was something totally new. But before he gets into explaining how these signs relate to, such as the sign of Virgo relating to the Abrahamic covenant, and the scales relating to the law of Moses, and the Scorpio representing the children of Israel when they went into the wilderness with scorpions and serpents for 40 years. Before he gets to all that, in his introduction, he talks about this person over here in this other book who wrote Mazzaroth or the Constellations, Frances Rolleston. This is from the 1800s. And what she attempted to do, what he points out, is that she took the roots of the Arabic star names and tried to match them phonetically with similar sounding Hebrew roots, right? And root words. And then she took the meaning of those Hebrew root words and gave that the meaning of these various star names. And that kind of surprised me, because I was hoping and I was believing that those star names really meant what they meant in the Arabic. But now I discovered, this was about 6 years ago, now I'm discovering that no, these star name definitions came from these words that these Hebrew root words that Frances Rolleston was trying to match phonetically with similar sounding Hebrew words. So that became a big problem. And the reason why it's a problem is because before the 11th century, we didn't have the vowel points. The Hebrew language didn't have the vowel points. And so we can't say for certainty how some of these words were pronounced. And so to take that pronunciation, and try to match it with similar sounding Hebrew root words, that's a little suspect in my mind. So that became a problem. And then the second problem is these Arabic star names that she's trying to match phonetically with these Hebrew root words. Some of them are more modern. They're not like, they can't be like traced hundreds or thousands of years back to the plains of Shinar or Mesopotamia. Some of these star names are very modern. And so she's taking these modern names and trying to match them with similar sounding Hebrew root words. So there's two big problems there. And that was a big shock to me and very disheartening, quite frankly, to me, because I had already been, spending so much time just studying so much for the first 3 years and adding scriptures to these definitions that she was given to these star names to just to magnify it all the more and to bring out this message. And I was very excited to preach this. and to share this. But now I come to find out that these star name definitions are not correct. And now what do? I got to start all over again. So then I keep reading. That was in the introduction of the mystery of the Mazzaroth. Now I keep reading to see, okay, well, if these star names don't mean what we've been told they mean, then what do we do with these constellations? Do they still tell the story of the gospel? So I keep reading the mystery of the Mazzaroth, one chapter after the other, and he starts making this comparison to the children of Israel. And so what he does in this book is the first 7 signs he relates exclusively to the history of the children of Israel. And it's not until you get to the sign of Aries that he then begins to relate the gospel and the message of the stars. And then he doesn't cover the minor constellations, or very little. He mostly just focuses on the 12 zodiacal constellations. And so he doesn't go beyond that. The one sign that him and I have a difference of opinion on is the sign of Cancer. And so Cancer, as you know, is represented by a crab. That's how we have it today. But I have strong suspicions that it should not be a crab. The star names do not tell you that it has anything to do with a crab. 2 of the star names refer to the northern and southern donkeys. Donkeys have nothing to do with crabs. Secondly, all the other signs, all the other symbols, constellations can be found in the scripture, but you will not find a crab mentioned anywhere in the Bible. But he takes the nature of the crab, which moves from side to side, and he compares that to the great apostasy that the Apostle Paul said would come in, and how they would creep in unawares. And so he reckons that with the sign of the crab, moving side to side and kind of creeping in. But once I discovered the Hebrew letter connections, which I'll be getting into here in a minute, I could not vouch for this sign as referring to that period of Israel's history. Now, when I talk about Israel's history, I'm not just talking Old Testament, I'm talking the totality of Scripture. So I was not able to confirm that the sign of Cancer relates to that time period, because it's represented by the letter Ayin, and it has to do with eyesight and the number 70. And the cardinal number is the 16th letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So the sign of Cancer is going to have something to do with the number 16 and the number 70, which I can't relate either of those 2 numbers with a crab. And we'll get more into that later. There's some other things I'll have to show you too when we get to that sign that just doesn't match up with a crab. All right, so moving on. So here we have the table that I came across, and this is what really was, it took my understanding of the Mazzaroth to an entirely different level, a higher level of understanding. And I was super excited when I came across this table, because in all those other books, those first 3 books that I read and many other books that I've read, there's never a mention of these Hebrew letter connections with the zodiac signs. And so if you look at this chart here to the left, move down to the 5th letter, which is the letter Hey, and you'll see, okay, it represents a window, it's a single letter, and it has a value of 5, and it relates it to the sign of Aries. I thought, whoa, what? There's something else I can track down now. Compare these Hebrew letters with the zodiac sign. Because I had, a few years before getting into the study of the Mazzaroth, I had spent quite a bit of time studying Hebrew and studying the Paleo Hebrew and the gematria values of these letters. And that was really exciting study. And now I'm able to take what I've learned from the study of the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, and match that with what I've been studying on these zodiac signs. So to the right here, there's an explanation of what we're looking at in this chart. And so it says the ancient Hebrew alphabet contained 3 sets of letters. Mother letters from which all of the remaining letters were descended. The mother letters are associated with the elements whose sounds they resemble. The aleph is the air, the mem is the water, the shin is the fire, and so forth. So there are 3 mother letters. Then there are the 7 double letters, which are those that have 2 pronunciations and thus a dual nature. And they have, depending upon where that letter is in the Hebrew word, if it's at the beginning of the Hebrew word, it's written one way. If it's at the end of the Hebrew word, it's written a different way. So that's why they are referred to as double letters and have a dual nature. And then it says the 12 remaining letters are derived from the 7 doubles. And they have singular pronunciations, and they're written in just one way. And they correspond to the 12 signs of the zodiac. So this was really exciting. And then there's this comment down below, and this was it. This changed everything for me. The traditional attribution of the zodiac signs to the 12 single letters, this person says, are not correct. It was reversed to veil it. Thus, the letter He is associated with Libra, not Aries. As we saw to the table to the left, look back up there again, look at the 5th letter down, the letter He, and scroll over, move over to the right, and you see that it has Aries being associated with the letter He. But he's saying that the letter He is associated with Libra, not with Aries. That's 180 degrees on the other side of the zodiac belt. So it says, compare the shape and meaning of the ancient Hebrew letters to see. And so what I did is I reversed all these letters then 180 degrees. And then I took my understanding of these Hebrew letters and their numerical values, and I matched them with what I had discovered from Tim Warner of these zodiac signs that relate to different periods in Israel's history. And so now I'm looking at the meaning of that letter and its numerical values, and I'm comparing it. I'm looking for that meaning and those numbers as they relate to that period in Israel's history. So when I came across this, how these letters were veiled and switched and flipped like that, 180 degrees, I shared this with a person over in Greece, actually, and he is having something like 56 apocryphal Jewish books translated into English for the first time. And so he is very familiar, very well versed in the Hebrew Apocrypha. And when I shared this with him, this is what he told me. He says the rabbis have a tendency to corrupt their own literature. They try to conceal things, so they hide things in a lot of different ways and a lot of underhanded ways. The reason why they do this is to keep things out of the hands of the Christians so that the manuscripts won't be spread abroad and they lose their hold on the key of knowledge, as it were. They take it away from men, they won't enter in themselves, and those who would, they hinder. And he went on to say, this sounds very correct with how they flipped the constellations, with those Hebrew letters. This is exactly the kind of thing you see consistent through all their hidden writings. They try to conceal the knowledge by doing this. That's incredible. So they know this. They know their true meaning, but they hide it. They twist it in their own writings and deceive their own people, not just the Christians even. And of course, this takes us to Luke 11:52, that says, "Woe to you, Torah experts, for you have taken away the knowledge. Not only did you yourselves not go in, but you also have stopped those who were trying to enter." Well, we are entering in now. We have the keys to the Mazzaroth. These are the keys. We have them back now. These keys have been hidden for approximately 2,000 years, possibly longer. The connection was there, but they've had them in this reversed state for so many centuries. And so perhaps this is the reason why no one ever thought to match them with the zodiac signs. I don't know. But that's what I've been spending the last 6 years on now, is matching these correctly, these Hebrew letters with the zodiac signs that they correspond with. And here we go. Now he said to compare the shape of these letters with the constellations, and to compare and see for yourselves. So I have put these letters side by side next to these constellation outlines, and I do see a similarity. The letter Kuf with the Virgo, the head and the body, The letter Hey, that's very similar to the scales, the balances. The Vav, the body and the stinger of the scorpion. Kashet in Hebrew, that just simply means the bow. And so here you have the letter Zion, which could look like a bow with the arrow. It's actually represents a sword. But when we get to this sign, you're going to see how both of them relate perfectly to what's going on with the children of Israel and the sign of Sagittarius. The two legs and body of Capricorn, Aquarius, is the water bearer, the bucket, and its corresponding letter is the letter Tet, which is a tea kettle holding water. Down below, you have the letter Yud. You flip that around 180 degrees, facing to the right, and it mirrors what you see in the sign of Pisces. You take Lamed, and you rotate that 90 degrees to the left, counterclockwise, and it has a similarity to Aries. The two horns, the two projections of the horns of Taurus, the bull, and so forth. So there is some similarity that I see here. So that kind of gave me an added assurance that we're on the right track. Now, for confirmation, now I'm not really into Jewish esotericism or that sort of thing. Mystical books such as this one, this is the Book of Creation. However, I did find something that was worth discovering. And in this book, it says the division of the zodiac into 12 divisions is first mentioned in the Sefer Yetzirah, which is of unknown antiquity. So they really don't know when this was penned. The latest proposed date being in the 4th century AD. So I can say at least since the 4th century AD that these letters have been reversed, because in this book is this confirming witness of the zodiac signs being represented by the 12 single Hebrew letters. And it says, these 12 letters he designed, formed, combined, and weighed, and changed, and created with them the 12 divisions of the heavens, namely the zodiac constellation. So, okay. However, when you keep reading here, you find that even in this book, way back then, the letters are still in their reversed format, that they're not properly aligned. But they do believe that the constellations were formed by these 12 single Hebrew letters when Yahuwah spoke them into existence. He spoke the Hebrew language, he spoke those letters, and the energy of those letters formed these constellations. So that was quite an interesting find right there. But it also tells me that, tells me how long these letters have been incorrectly associated with these zodiac signs. So I liken and the scriptures do as well, the Mazzaroth to a heavenly scroll of sorts. When you go to the book of Revelation, chapter 6, it says that the stars of heaven fell to the earth, and as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind, then the sky recedes as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island is moved out of its place. And so John here is seeing the sky, and he says it receded as a scroll. So the sky, the firmament, is like a scroll. And on this scroll are these zodiacal constellations represented by those 12 single Hebrew letters. And just as you read Hebrew from right to left, so you are to read these zodiacal signs from right to left. They move across the sky from right to left. So pretty interesting. Now, the knowledge of the star signs have been passed on, I believe, to successive generations, going all the way back to Seth, to Enoch, Methuselah, all the way to Jacob and to Ishmael, the father of the Arabs. It says here in Josephus' writings that the Persian and Arabian traditions ascribe the invention of astronomy to Adam, Seth, and Enoch. Jewish historian Flavius Josephus states that Seth and his offspring preserved ancient astronomical knowledge in pillars of stone. Now, I read elsewhere that it was 2 pillars. One was of stone and the other of brick. Well, that's interesting. Seth lived contemporaneously with Enoch, his great-great-great-grandson, during Enoch's entire lifespan of 365 years. And so they would have communicated with one another. And also Enoch's son Methuselah and grandson Lamech. So Seth lived at the same time as the father of Noah. And then from Noah, the knowledge he had of the star signs that I believe were passed down from Seth all the way down to Lamech, and then Lamech to his father Noah, and then from Noah, the knowledge he had of the star signs would have been passed on to his sons and grandchildren, and unto the great patriarch Abraham, who lived contemporaneously um, with Noah for 57 years. Now, some timelines don't have it in that way. I traced it, and when I did a study of scriptures, I saw that there was an overlapping of 57 years. And if that's the case, then Noah and his son Shem most likely would have communicated with Noah and passed on a lot of knowledge that was carried over into the new world. According to Jewish tradition, Abraham visited with Noah on numerous occasions to learn from him. Abraham, in turn, imparted this knowledge to the Egyptians, who prior to their interaction with him had very little knowledge of the stars. So that's kind of surprising. Abraham was a renowned astronomer and mathematician whose instruction positively influenced the ancient Chaldean and Egyptian worlds. Dr. Adam Clark says that the ancient Egyptians, that they held the stars to be symbols of sacred things. That's pretty cool. Astronomy became the heart and soul of the Egyptian religious system. According to Josephus, Abraham was a learned man with great and honored skills, especially in his own land, the Ur of the Chaldees. He communicated to the Egyptians arithmetic and delivered to them the science of astronomy. So I find it interesting to learn that Abraham was a great astronomer. And so isn't it interesting then that when Abraham gets up in age, and he's concerned about not having a child to carry on his seed, his name, the father shows up and he tells Abraham to look up into the heavens and tell the number of the stars if you be able to number them. So shall your seed be. And so Abraham was very familiar with the stars. And so he used the stars to point out to him that as numerous as the stars of heaven are, so shall your seed be. Now, this is the zodiac in Dendera, Egypt. Many historians claim that the Egyptians learned the zodiac from the Greeks, but this is not so. The design, the word pictures, that's the hieroglyphs, and symbols are identical to the Sumerian and Babylonian astronomy found in the birthplace of Abraham. The example found in the Temple of Dendera dates from the time when Abraham would have been in Egypt, traveling there to escape the famine in Canaan. Now, here's another interesting couple of quotes I found in the book of Jasher. From the book of Jasher is this amazing statement concerning the stars and their connection to the sons of Jacob, and the wisdom concerning the stars that Benjamin says was taught to him by his father.
All right, so here's the story I was telling you guys about. It is in Jasher, and it's when Benjamin recognizes Joseph.
Jacob. And so now Jacob is passing on the knowledge that he had to his sons. And he ordered them to bring before him his map of the stars, whereby Joseph knew all the time. So Joseph was very familiar with the stars. And Joseph said unto Benjamin, I have heard that the Hebrews are acquainted with all wisdom. Dost thou know anything of this? And Benjamin said, Thy servant is knowing also in all the wisdom which my father Jacob taught me. And Joseph said unto Benjamin, Look now at this instrument, and understand where your brother Joseph is in Egypt, who you said went down into Egypt. And Benjamin beheld that instrument with the map of the stars of heaven, and he was wise, and looked therein to know where his brother was.
All right, so there you can see right there in the text, he's showing him a star map, and Benjamin's reading it, and he's understanding what's happening. He sees in the stars of heaven where his brother is in Egypt.
And Benjamin divided the whole land of Egypt into 4 divisions, and he found that he who was sitting upon the throne before him was his brother Joseph. How about that? That's pretty amazing. So after,
I know we just kind of blew through that, but right there in Jasher, you can see that a star map is used. Benjamin reads it, and he understands.
Giving man knowledge of the story contained in the stars and having it passed down through all these successive generations, Yahuwah knew that his people would be tempted to fall into idolatry and worship these great and wonderful signs that he placed in the heavens. Prior to entering into the land of Canaan, Yahuwah gave his people this warning. Take heed, lest you lift your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun, the moon, and the stars, all the host of heaven, you feel driven to worship them and serve them, which Yahuwah, your Elohim, has given to all the people under the whole heaven as a heritage. So right there, he's cautioning them not to worship the stars, don't fall into idolatry, but at the same time, he's saying that this has been passed on as a heritage from one generation to the next. And I'm passing it on to all of you right now. Now, we find when we read through the Bible that there is a very close association of the children of Israel with the stars. And we see this beginning with Abraham's seed. Again, when he was concerned that he wasn't going to have a child, he was getting old, he was 90 years old or almost 100 years old, 99 years old to be exact, right? Then Elohim comes to him and shows him, tells him to look up into the heavens and tell the number of the stars if you be able to. And he said, so shall your seed be for a multitude. And so the stars are likened to the seed of Abraham. And we read in the New Testament that whoever is of the faith of Abraham, they are accounted as the seed. And so all of us are represented by the stars. We are to shine as lights in the darkness of this world, right? We're to let our light shine just as the stars do. And then when we come to the story of Joseph and the dream that he has, he dreams of the sun, moon, and the 11 stars that bowed before him. And his father, Jacob, interprets the dream and he says, my son, what is this that you have dreamed? Shall indeed I and your mother and your 11 brothers come before you to bow down to you? And so in this dream, in this vision and interpretation that Jacob gives, the sun is the father, the moon is the mother, and the 11 stars, and Joseph, being the 12th star, represent the children of Jacob, the children of Israel. So here they are being likened again to the stars, and 12 in number. Those correspond to the zodiacal constellations. And then you have the story of the woman in Revelation 12. Again, we see the sun, she's clothed with the sun, the moon is under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Those are the 12 tribes of Israel. You could also say they represent the 12 disciples. And then we come to the story of Balaam when he blessed Israel. He wasn't supposed to bless Israel, but that's what he ended up doing because he could only speak what God told him to say. So it says, and Balaam raised his eyes and saw Israel encamped according to their tribes, and the spirit of Elohim came upon him. And he said, how lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel. He shall pour water from his buckets. What? So now Balaam, as he blesses the children of Israel, he looks down upon them in their tents and he blesses them in the language of the zodiac, of these constellations. And so he shall pour water from his buckets. That's Aquarius. And his seed shall be in many waters. That would be the fish in Pisces. His king, the king of Israel, shall be higher than Agag. Well, that would correspond to Cepheus, the celestial king. He has his left foot on the North Star. It's as high as you can go up in the firmament. He's right on the North Star. And it says that his kingdom shall be exalted. God brings him out of Egypt. He has strength like a wild ox. Well, that's Taurus. That's the oxen. He shall consume the nations, his enemies. He shall break their bones. Well, Perseus is the breaker. He's the one that breaks the chains off of Andromeda, the bound woman. She's bound with chains, and he breaks her chains. He's the breaker. And he's also going to be the breaker of the nations. He shall break their bones and pierce them with his arrows. This is, again, talking about Israel. And here it says that he will pierce them through, his enemies, with his arrows. When that's Sagittarius. He bows down. He lies down as a lion. And as a lion, who shall rouse him? Well, there's another zodiac sign. That's Leo the lion. And blessed is he who blesses you, and cursed is he who curses you. So most definitely, the children of Israel are represented by the stars in the heavens and by these zodiacal constellations. They're being described, the children of Israel, all 12 tribes are being described in the language of these zodiacal constellations. And then one more reference in the Old Testament. Daniel 12:3, it says, those who turn many to righteousness will shine like the stars forever and ever. So again, Elohim's people, Yahuwah's people, are likened to the stars. And so there's no coincidence, it's no strange thing then that the story of his people would be written in the stars, because they are the stars, allegorically speaking. And then, of course, the wise men were led by a star. And after Yeshua was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, where is he who has been born king of the Jews? For we have...
And where did they come from? They came from Babylon, and they studied under Daniel.
Have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. And it is my personal belief that that star was a distant company of shining angels that led the wise men to where the young child was. Now, when we get to the New Testament, in the book of Revelation, it says that he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword. And his countenance was like the sun shining in its strength. So here again are these stars. And of course, these stars are his people. It says, the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, the 7 stars are the angels, that's the messengers of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands, which you saw, are the 7 churches, 7 assemblies. And one more connection to the children of Israel and the Mazzaroth. So here, located in Jewish synagogues as far back as the 6th century and even further back, are these zodiac mosaics in these places of worship in the land of Galilee, of all places, where Yeshua did the majority of his preaching. He may have even walked on these floors when he went into their synagogues. So we can definitely see, here's Aquarius, the water bearer, bottom left in the center, and then you have Capricorn next to that. You have the two fish over to the right. You have Libra, the man holding the scales. These are the zodiac signs, and it's right there on the floors of these places of worship in the land of Galilee. Now, another interesting thing is that the number 12, so there's 12 zodiac signs, there's 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And so this number 12 throughout the Bible is going to relate to Elohim's people all the way through. You have the 12 patriarchs, the 12 tribes of Israel. You have the 12 birthstones on Aaron's breastplate with the names of the 12 tribes, the 12 disciples, the woman with the crown of 12 stars upon her head in Revelation chapter 12. The length and width and breadth of the city is 12,000 furlongs. The 12 gates of the New Jerusalem with the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. The wall of the city having 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. So all throughout Scripture, the number 12 relates to the children of Israel. And that's throughout Scripture, Old Testament, New Testament. There is this comparison of the children of Israel with the stars. Okay, so now we're going to get into the Mazzaroth wheel that I created, and we're going to look at the various Hebrew elements that I have associated with each sign. So in the center of this wheel is this is the star Spica. The Hebrew name for it is Zemek, which is a word that's used exclusively to refer to the Messiah. And so since he is at the center of all of this, but the heavens declare his glory, his star I made prominent in the very center. And then expanding outward from that, you have the 12 glyphs, which are very interesting and go back quite a ways. And then from there, I have the 12 single Hebrew letters. I have their ordinal value, that is their number in the placement of the Hebrew alphabet, and their gematria, their numerical value. So when we look at Bethula, our first sign here, she's represented by the letter Kuf. It's the 19th letter, and it has a value of 100. And its paleo form, it was the sun at the horizon. And then I have the Hebrew month and its meaning. And then I have the meaning of the sign itself, a virgin, which is to separate a bride. And then the Hebrew tribe and what it means, and scriptural references that go along with that tribe. This is zooming in a little bit closer. And you'll see that I have it color-coded. So I have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, all the way around. And that's to help to simplify, because there's a lot of information on this wheel and on my poster where I have this wheel. When we come over here, this is the bottom half of the wheel. And so here it is on my poster, and here are the minor constellations. So the minor constellations of Virgo are also in red, just like Bethula is, and the same thing with the scales. So it's all color-coded to help you find the constellations that correlate with each sign. And then, so we're going over my poster right now to help you understand how I've laid it out. So in the middle section, of course, I have the disclaimer, which I read at the beginning of this presentation, that fortune telling, divination, monthly prognosticating, all these things were forbidden, of course, but that there is no prohibition. You can understand how the heavens declare the glory of Elohim. And then I get into the study of the Mazzaroth briefly, and where that's mentioned in the book of Job, and how it relates to the 12 signs of the zodiac and their constellations. And then I get into how the constellations were formed by the star names, which gave them their definitions. And then I show how the children of Israel are represented by the stars, and then the keys to unlocking the mystery of the Mazzaroth. So that is a book that I'm currently working on, the keys to the Mazzaroth, and that's those 12 single Hebrew letters. And I show you that connection, and also reveal how the traditional attribution of those Hebrew letters to the zodiac signs were misrepresented. They weren't correct. They were reversed to veil it. And I also provide a link to a YouTube channel that I would recommend to get a deeper understanding from a Jewish perspective of these Hebrew letters. There's a lot to glean from some of these Jewish rabbis on the meaning of these letters. And then over to the right in the middle section, I have a section dealing with the sign of Cancer, which I mentioned earlier, that it most likely was not a crab. But notice how the crab is above the head of the water serpent. Anytime you have something above something else with its feet on top of it, crushing it, that's showing its dominance over what's beneath it, such as the lion has its paws on the neck of Hydra, and here you have Cancer with the legs of the crab. I don't think it's a crab, but it's over the head of the scorpion. The natural predator of the water serpent, as you can see to the right, is the eagle, right? Snatching the water serpent out of the water there. And so what I believe that Cancer originally was, when you look at the outline of the constellation, you see here, I have the outline of the constellation itself. You see a pair of wings, and then you have an enclosure. And this enclosure, I believe, represents the sheepfold. All of Yah's people are represented within this fold, and this is the fold that they will be returned back to at the end of the zodiac cycle. And then down below to the left, I have constellations, correlate with each other and their positions and all that. There's so much to learn just by staring at this for hours and hours. You can start making connections, as I have made connections. If you just study the constellations individually and you don't see how they are, what constellations are next to them, beneath them, above them, you're going to miss some things. And so look at everything, look at all the surrounding constellations around whatever constellation you're studying. Look at the surrounding constellations because it's going to give you added insight. And then I have next to that, I have the history of Israel, how it's revealed in the Old Testament. So the first 6 signs relate to the children of Israel in the Old Testament, and the last 6 relate to the children of Israel in the New Testament. The sign of Pisces kind of overlaps both because it's the scattering of the 2 houses of Israel and then their recovery. And that recovery of the children of Israel began with a decree of Cyrus to the Jews when Cyrus took over the Babylon. He made a decree that the Jews could return to their homeland and to rebuild their temple and all that in their city. But he was not only now the new king of Babylon, but his kingdom extended into a world kingdom. And so all Israelites of all 12 tribes were free to return to their homeland if they chose to. And so that began the recovery of the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But when Yeshua comes, he takes it the rest of the way, right? And he tells his disciples to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, right? And bid them to come in, to come back to the covenant. And so that's, and then again, you see how these are all color coded again. And so there's a summary statement for each sign that I provided, and then scriptural references. These scriptural references for these summary statements are going to relate to the meaning of the Hebrew name for that sign and or the Hebrew letter, its numerical value and meaning. This gets you going. There is over 300 scriptural references alone just on this star map that I have, this poster. That gets you started. I mean, you'll need some time to go through all of this, but you'll start making the connections, hopefully, as I have made, and then you'll take it from there, and you'll bring other scriptures to mind, probably, that will go along with some of these constellations and extend your understanding and knowledge of the story that's being told.
All right, so that's Robert Williams, you guys. If you want to find him, his channel's called Signs of the Hebrew Mazzaroth on YouTube, and he's got a lot of information there. So really good stuff. We may look at some more of his stuff later.
Close the message
at a later date. Yeah, you got a question, Jeremy?
Well, I liked his poster, and I want to possibly look at getting one of those. I've been interested in this subject for a really long time, and I it's kind of taken a back seat to a lot of other things. But I was saying in the chat that in college I wrote a little paper about this idea, and it went over, and people liked it. They thought it was very interesting, but it was just a college paper.
Yeah, you can probably find links over. Let's see on his. I think he's got links on the video here. Yeah, he's got it on his website, Mazzaroth.info. I'll make sure you guys got a link over there in Discord so you can go to his website. There it is here. Let me show you a screenshot.
Thank you.
So it's all the information is there at Mazzaroth.info. Yeah, and if you wanted to email him directly, it's Robert Williams. Yeah, and there's his. So I'll make sure there's a link to this one. This is just the introduction to the Mazzaroth. He does, this is his thing exclusively. So he's put a lot of time into it. You know,
clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I think 12 years of study into this one subject, and so, yeah, he's the go-to guy if you want to, look at, some information on the biblical Mazzaroth, right? So, it's compared to, all the other cultures and stuff. The Hebrews had their own, and it's very biblical as he showed there, and even in Jasher, you can see where Joseph has a conversation with his brother Benjamin. It is about the Mazzaroth, and this is how Benjamin recognizes him. in that. It's a fascinating story. So it does play a role, and it would behoove us to understand what the Mazzaroth is. And when we see a sign, for instance, the blood moon that happened, and what in the zodiac, and yada yada yada. When you start examining all the things on that, you can see, oh my gosh, the Mazzaroth's been telling us that Trump's about to do this thing, right? Everything is there. It's not just the story of the gospel. It's not just the story of Israel. Everything in history is there. And not only that, you and me, based on when you were born and everything that happened in the moment that you were born. Now, that's all I'm going to say on that, because we're kind of borderline looking into, you know, some things that are forbidden, but it's all there. And this is how, like I said, the wise men knew that Yeshua was going to be born. They learned this from Daniel. This is also how Daniel, when Daniel, things were revealed to him by the angel, but there was also things that he knew because of the stars. Same thing with Jeremiah. And by the way, Jeremiah was referencing Daniel in a lot of things. Anyway,
well, if indeed the scriptures are encoded as we say they are, the idea that Yahuwah would not do the same thing in the stars is not outside the realm of
right. And I love the
possibility.
conversation
That's
he
completely
has.
consistent,
Right.
with my understanding of how he works and what he says, and also what he says about himself in Scripture. So,
right. I loved his conversation with Job when he talks about Pleiades and binding Pleiades and the band of Orion, and he's making a reference there. He is declaring, I am the one who laid out the stars. I'm the one that commands it. So I'm the one. So he's the one that orchestrated and put into motion this thing that is very much a clock. It is everything about the seasons. It's all about the animals. The animals are in sync with this thing. Okay. And they seem to know things. I told you a story about how my animals knew when an earthquake was going to happen, and they were letting us know ahead of time. How do they know that? Because they're in sync with nature and with Yah's creation. We are the only species that is out of sync with the Creator, and I think it goes back to the sun, moon, and stars and the calendar of creation. It is a natural rhythm. It is how things grow. It's how the bees know when to pollinate and when flowers bloom. Everything is dictated by the sun, moon, and stars, you guys. Even the way fish feed. There are days when you can go try to go fishing and you won't catch a thing, but there are days when you go and you can't stop catching them, right? Why is that? Because they're in sync with the moon cycle. There's a whole teaching behind that. How there's apps you can get on your phone that tell you when the moon cycle is optimum to go fishing. And if you go fishing, you're guaranteed you're going to catch fish. That's amazing to me. So, Yah's creation, his clock, we're living amongst it, and we're the only species that is out of sync. And this is a problem. Anyway, we're going to look at this a little bit more further. I'm going to talk to you guys also about the equinox and the changing of the year, because right now we're in Abib time where they're sighting the barley, and right after that, you know what's coming. We got Passover coming. So there's a whole nother sequence of feasts that are coming up, and the sun, moon, and stars are telling us. Not only that, but also the agriculture is telling us what time it is. We have to pay attention. Josephus even writes about how they would observe the animals, how migratory birds would be on time every year at the same time. And so farmers knew what time it was just by those kind of signs. All right. So we've been disconnected. Anyway, that's what I got for you guys tonight. I hope you learned something. We're going to continue this. Do got some good news on the website. We've made some progress this week, James told me, and I'm going to be mailing him some files here really soon off of this thumb drive that I got to duplicate. And right after that, when he gets that, we'll be up and running with code programs on the website. So I'm sending him hard copies, and not just some file over the internet. So, yeah, we got that to look forward to. So hopefully everybody will be able to use Torah and not worry about downloads. So be praying for that, you guys, that everything works smoothly on that. All right.